Okay, my colleague Dominic Agbeya has joined me now to host the Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology in Ogun State, Professor ABAYOMI ARIGBABU. This morning we are looking at the challenges of COVID-19 as schools resume in Ogun State and indeed in Nigeria. Welcome to the program, Honorable Commissioner.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much.
Good to have you, sir.
Pleasure to be here.
The challenge of COVID-19, not actually restricted to Ogun State, but then now that the schools have are resuming today, COVID-19 is a major one, is a major fear for so many parents and for government too. But we also know that Ogun State is a state that has actually led, in the area of coping with the challenges of COVID-19. We've had DigiClass, we've had SUBEB is also conducting one, all of that. Now, how prepared is the state government, for the virus as our kids return to school?
Oh, well, I want to thank you for bringing me, and I want to say that the pandemic has actually been a challenge all over the world, and even the Western world, where we have the best of facilities. We see what is happening all over there. But as a state in this country, you remember that when there was lockdown in Lagos, Abuja, and Ogun State, probably because of our proximity to Lagos State. And that actually made us to also be one of the states that are actually prepared very well, especially now that we talk about resumption. The resumption earlier, during the second term, we actually had to have staggered classes so that we take care of maybe social distancing, so that students we'll be using all the facilities for probably half of the school population and so on. But since then we've been preparing, and because of that, the governor approved the production of more furniture in schools. As we speak now, we've had supplies of about 9,000 in schools, but that's still a far cry from where we're going. And because of that, he has given further approval for production of 25,000 tables and chairs for schools, so that that will ensure, it will now decongest and then ensure proper spacing in the classrooms. Okay. It's not something we can actually take care in a day. Yeah. This is something that came and met everybody unawares. And what we've been doing since then is to, apart from the fact that when schools were to resume earlier, money was put in place, and schools were asked to buy a lot of buckets, and water was made available. We asked the heads of schools to make sure that there will be water, there will be soap for them to wash, and then we had, of course, there was face mask distributed to students, and then they were encouraged to use soap and water to wash at all times, and then use hand sanitizer. So we still continue with that. As I speak, we made sure that we gave out the running course to schools. So heads of schools have been given their running course so that they will be able to use it to also meet up to make more provision for what was in place when they resumed earlier. The staggered arrangement has also made us to study the situation and see how we'll be able to cope with it when we have the full swing. We cannot afford to continue with the staggered arrangement, because the examination will be based on the full syllabus, and even with the full syllabus, full time in schools, it's been difficult to even cover the syllabus. When you now talk about the staggered arrangement, where they were having about 3 hours and so on, we just felt that it was necessary for us to keep the students in school, and that was why we did that. So, but now we think with more caution, we are actually resuming with a lot of caution, and we have told the heads of schools to make sure that all the NCDC protocols and the government protocols concerning COVID-19 are actually adhered to. You see that in the announcement we gave, we actually reminded them that there's need for them to ensure that face mask is worn by all, and that they make provision for water and soap, and also ensure social distancing. It's a challenge, I won't say, because even if you try to do that in the classroom, when the students even go out, you see what happened. But I think the school is actually the appropriate place to actually educate them about this, to remind them. So the more they stay at home, they might even forget. So when they are in school, the intention is for us to drum this to their ears. And what we have also advised as of schools is to, since we are not going to have a separate lesson where we'll be teaching them about COVID-19, is to do what we call incorporation, injection of COVID-19 ideas and protocols into every lesson. As I teach mathematics, as I teach biology, as I teach Yoruba, you are setting aside some time in between the lectures, in between the lessons, to make sure we are reminding them about all these, because it's something that we just have to live with it, and nobody knows when it will end. And nobody knew that this thing will last till this time. When it started, we thought it would just be for about 1 or 2 months, and look at us. By March, it will be 1 year that the first the lockdown was actually put in place by government at that time. So what we have done is to ask heads of schools to be very vigilant, to ensure that the students are actually reminded at all times of the need to actually be conscious of their own health, and also the fact that this second wave, which as Pastor told us, is even a bit more deadly, we need to actually be careful. You cannot keep the children at home forever. Even at home, when they are at home, they mix up with people, they go to markets, they go to churches, and they go to everywhere. So I think the school is even the right place where they should actually be reminded of what they should do concerning COVID-19.
So you were talking about the fact that the staggered classes cannot go on for long because of the fact that it's not going to make it possible for the syllabus to be covered on time. Now, do you have in mind any date for the full resumption of school?
No, what we have now is full resumption. That's why I said it's full resumption, because in about 2 months you start having one form of examination or the other, and we are not going to have an examination that will not, like SSC examination, it will not say because you didn't cover the syllabus. We expect students to be, the examination body expects students to have covered the syllabus when they will come for the examination. So what we have done is, we have lost some ground. We have lost ground, so there is need for us to cover the ground. Of course, at the same time, like I reminded people when we started the staggered arrangement, and people were saying that why staggered arrangement, make it full, and I said, look, we have to be cautious and then actually follow this thing with a lot of plans. It is the time of staggered arrangement allowed us to make some plans, to put in place some measures. The furniture we are talking about, some of them are in schools now. The production is still going on because we have actually not gotten there. So apart from the first one was the 12,000 that has been going on, and then now we are talking about another 25,000 that the governor has actually given approval for us to supply to schools. So, something that has been known even before pandemic, we've had shortage of all these things. This is something that was inherited by this administration, but we cannot solve the problem in one day. So, but measures have been put in place so that as we resume now, more and more furniture are coming into the classes, and apart from that, we are also conscious of the fact that there is need to to increase the teaching staff in the schools, because of course, even without the pandemic, we had shortages here and there. People are retiring and so on. So, but the governor has actually given approval for us to work towards that, so that we can have more teachers in school. Because if you reduce maybe a class that should be taught by one person, if because of social distancing you now say, okay, make it 2 classes, then it means you will need more hands and so on. So the governor has actually approved for us to employ. But at the same time, we are still working on something which the governor said we should look at, which will also assist us in the area of improving teaching manpower in schools.
So it's a total and complete and full resumption that we are having now.
It's total resumption, and with a lot of maybe caution by all and sundry, and then adherence to COVID-19 protocol, wearing of masks, washing of hands, use of hand sanitizers, social distancing, and all sorts of. And if there's isolation centers, in schools, where clinics and their sick bay, that has been put in place. We have told them, make sure it's functioning. So if you observe anybody that is maybe a little bit sick or something, take proper care and don't hesitate if there is need to escalate it to the nearest health facility so that we can actually ascertain what they use. And of course, we expect that parents whose children are sick, for one reason or the other, they should ensure that children are okay and fit before they ask them to go to school.
Commissioner, how hard is the state government going to be on any head of school that does not enforce the use of face mask? Because I think that's the first thing first. Yeah. I see some kids, after school would have face mask and all of that. So you can imagine what happens within the school premises.
Yes, that's why now, actually, I had a meeting with the ESCO of ANCOPS, and we have also told the ESCO of primary schools and so on that enforcement of use of face mask is very, very important because it will help us to a large extent to reduce the spread of this virus. Research is still going on this thing, and we cannot afford to just throw caution to the wind. This time around, we have told them to ensure that children put on this mask so that we can reduce the spread of the virus. And for the heads of schools, because of the instruction we gave, I'm sure everybody wants to be alive, want to actually be alive. So, like I told people, that is somebody that is alive that will write examination. While we were talking about covering the syllabus, I said, well, let's do it with caution. So it was, with a lot of caution, what we call cautious optimism now, but and we are monitoring. When I leave here now, I'm going to the field. Somebody is already in Shagamu. The ones in Ijebu, they are also doing the same thing. They are doing the same thing. All local governments, the zonal education officers are actually on the field. I am here in Abeokuta with the PS and the director of schools. Will be going around to see how some of these things that we have advised and the directives we have given, to what extent it has been actually adhered to. So I don't want to believe any early of school with true caution to the wind, because it's something that has to do with health. And nobody can say, well, I'm above this thing, it won't happen to me. So that's why everybody, because if you allow somebody who should put on mask to just be moving around without mask, you don't know, maybe that person will infect you. So we don't want such things to happen. So,
all right, are you enforcing these rules only in public schools? What about private schools?
No, schools.
Private schools?
All schools. In fact, the one of private schools, we are even more strict, because we expect that private schools are supposed to also follow the regulations that we actually put in place. So when we talk of schools, for us, schools are schools, because even if anybody sees school as business, for us, we see school as a social service. And for anybody to operate school in the state, you have to actually abide with the regulation in the state. So for us, whatever we say we put in place is for all schools, the public schools, private schools, all schools. So, and I'm sure nobody will want a situation whereby we now want to apply sanction to a school,
including the ones in the rural areas.
Yes, that's why. That's why the way the ministry runs, it has made it possible for us to be able to touch all nooks and crannies. At the headquarters here, we have the headquarters, that is the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology in Abeokuta, and then in all the local governments, we have the zonal education officers that will cover the various, and they have officers. So they go. So apart from the central monitoring, there's also the local monitoring, and of course, we also monitor those who monitor. In other words, so we actually also monitor whether the zonal officers are doing what they should do. We have our mechanism to do that. And of course, what we have also done is to work with the heads of schools very well, in such a way that they have direct access to me. I talk to principals directly. Like I told them when I came on board, I said, well, I'm the Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology, but for the public schools, for instance, we have 511 schools. And so for me, we have 511 commissioners of education. And then we also have the private schools also, all the heads of schools there. For me, they are also commissioners of education, science and technology. They have to help us to enforce whatever goes on in those schools. So as I'm actually giving directive here, I'm actually passing it down to all those other ones. And then all of us are enforcing it to ensure that the standard of education is because Ogun State is the education capital of Nigeria. So, like the governor always says, you know, when he came on board, he declared emergency in the area of education, and because of that, he did a lot of things. He put his money where his mouth is, not just saying something and you're not following it up. And that's why if you go around, you see yellow roof buildings in the schools. About 950 projects are going on in various schools because what was met on ground, he was really not happy because he said, when he came on board, he said the Minister of Education should go around and look at schools and give him the worst schools in the state. So that made those projects going on possible. He then approved. The exercise was done twice. But of course, people will say, but we still see some of these things. Like, well, you can imagine for how long this thing has been going on.
Yeah.
So it will take some time before you see it will cover to the level we want. But the impact is being felt. And anybody who is sincere, you see that things are not the way it was about 2 years ago when, less than 2 years ago when this administration came on board. A lot of things have been done, and a lot of things are going on at all levels.
All of these you have talked about, they are for secondary, primary and secondary.
Yeah, at the tertiary level.
Now, at the tertiary level, we have state-owned schools.
Yes.
From Polytechnic to College of Education to universities.
Yes.
What happens in those areas?
Yes. In terms of development or in terms of...
in terms of resumption.
Okay, yeah.
Or plans ahead of...
Yes, yes. Let me just start with the resumption. You see, issue of resumption at tertiary level, the government gives the framework. But for those of us who are familiar with the running of tertiary institutions have what we call Senate. They also have academic board in polytechnics and colleges of education. So when you give the framework, the Senate will sit, the academic board in the colleges also will sit to determine how best things will go in their own institution, looking at their own peculiarities. So right now, because of all sorts of things, you see that you cannot say, unlike in those days when we were in school, when you can say all universities are now in first semester. If you go to one university now or one polytechnic, they will say we are still in first semester of 2021. One will say they are in second semester of 1920, and so on and so forth. So depending on the situation they have on their hand. And don't forget that we have encouraged them to actually put in place online teaching. And all of them have been doing that. I'm aware that even Olabisonabanjo University did his post-UTME online. And you know, some people still complain here and there because it's a new thing. And this is the new normal that all of us will have to actually live with. Many of them have actually purchased equipment for online teaching, virtual teaching. And as we speak, they are receiving that. And I'm aware that National University of Education, they were having online classes. Even their master's examination, they've been having online examination for master's students. That has been going on smoothly. I'm aware that some of these polytechnics are also having online teaching. So you see that even the tertiary institutions have prepared themselves ahead. The period of ASU strike helped the university, the two universities we have, Olabisonabanjo University and the National University, to test run some of the things they put in place. And I'm aware, you know, I just left. When I left National University of Education, and I know what we put in place before, and I know what is going on in Olabisonabanjo University. So the polytechnics, I'm in touch with them, and the College of Education at home. They are doing a lot of that. That will help them reduce crowd. Okay, so there's no need for large classes as such, since you can do virtual teaching. And it's easier at the tertiary level because almost every student will have one form of Android phone or the other. I mean, students see it as part of what they should have, so it's easier. So then, for them, most of them, they are very fortunate about this TED fund, maybe support, which they get every time. And Ogun State has done something that no other state have done. We have set up what we call our own local test fund. We call it Ogun Tertiary Education Fund. So the Ogun Tertiary Education Fund, the governor approved that for institutions, that is particularly polytechnics, without TED fund intervention, that the state government will give them intervention every year. 200 million has been released this year now to go to those institutions. And apart from that, the governor has also approved that all institutions in the state, whether you get intervention or not, there will be government intervention in schools. In other words, we're going to have structures that the state government will fund that will be in each of the tertiary institutions. That is happening also I can tell you for free that for in the last 20 years, I cannot remember when we have that type of direct intervention. That's why I told you that the governor actually put his money where his mouth is. So bursary, I'm sure you are aware that bursary is being processed to be paid to students all over the country. We are using technology, and that's why we are reaching students all over, wherever they are, all over the country. We have actually sent memo out to all vice chancellors, provosts, and rectors in all universities so that students can get their. And apart from that, the governor has approved that vehicles should be released to tertiary institutions. So depending on their population, just to at least mitigate the problems they have with transportation. That one effort is going on to get the buses released to students. And also, for the first time, Ogun State government has actually approved scholarship to all very maybe brilliant students in schools, students on first class, students on distinction. You know, various universities and their polytechnics had one policy or the other in place before, but what the government has approved now is that all first-class students, for instance, all distinction students. When we say first-class students, we mean even from 100 level. Once you are on first-class grade, like 4.5, then as long as you maintain that 4.5, you continue to get scholarship every year. So the same thing for those in polytechnic. So that is something that is new. And therefore, indigent students, probably whether you are not brilliant, you are indigent, or you are not able to get one form of scholarship or the other, government has made it a policy to have what we call work-study program. The work-study is a situation whereby students are in school and they do one form of light exercise, light job or the other, and get paid for what they do to meet. And it will not disturb their study because it's just a matter of looking at their timetable. There's supposed to be work-study committee in schools and then work-study center that can actually plan, and students get the hours, they get credited for hours they work, and light job. 1 hour, 2 hours, and it's recorded at the end of the month they get paid. They use that type of fund to support themselves in feeding, and also to support if they have to buy anything, maybe to buy things or even support their school fees. So at the tertiary level, we have also make sure that we touch the schools, and then we also maybe ensure that schools are also better run. We are looking at the management. I've held meeting with heads of institution to make sure that rules are actually followed in whatever they do, follow the laws of this institution. And for those schools that have one form of maybe problem or the other, when this admission came on board, you remember Abela Polytechnic, this problem was actually handled, and that's why we have stability in that place. The same thing, Tertiary College of Education. This administration was also able to stabilize things there. So some of these little challenges in the management of tertiary institutions, we have actually stabilized it. And what we want is a better management in schools, and we are looking at also providing better and more funding. Okay,
Commissioner, we'll be closing this interview in the next 3, 4, 5 minutes. But again, let's look at the challenge of COVID-19 as we're moving forward. What are we envisaging? Because nobody knows. 2020 was totally taken, consumed by COVID-19. We're in 2021. What is the state government thinking about, as we're moving forward?
Yes, like I told you, you see, the thing is when COVID-19, when it came at that time, nobody expected. In fact, I was head of the institution at that time. When the government first gave us, I think 1 month or the other, we were in the university. We said, will this thing not be too much? This thing would have been over. Let's make it 2 weeks in the first instance, and so on. Look at it now. So the good thing now is that we have all seen that this is not something that will go in a hurry. Will go very fast. So we are actually preparing that we need to live with it, one way or the other. And that's why you see vaccines now being administered in the Western countries and so on. And the government is also thinking of vaccines here. So which means we feel that, okay, just let's believe that this thing is just like when we've been living with malaria. So we need to live with it. So how do we now live? The new normal is what and that's what has brought about the online teaching. At the secondary level, we have brought in what we call DigiClass. Ogun State was probably the first state to to do something like that. The Digi class is going on, and what I've just discussed with OGTV, we were working out that the Digi class, apart from the intervention we did at that time when students were fully at home, it's now going to be something that will just be continuous, and students will know that, okay, at a particular point in time, they can listen to it, maybe 6 to 7, or there will be a time of the day that they will listen to it, and they can actually use that to augment whatever they are taught in school. So the DG class will continue. You see that for primary and junior secondary, it's going on now with SUBEB, and so we also want to make that one a permanent feature to support students' learning. We continue to preach the protocols as given to us by NCDC, so that it becomes part of our way of life. You see that our uniform is no longer complete if you don't have face mask. So now the consciousness of using face masks, use of face masks, is now becoming more. Not only even in offices. You see that now people are becoming more conscious. Though they throw caution to the wind, because people now hear. Before, people would say it's not true, it's just this and that. Now they are seeing people they know. That they had that this person died of COVID, this and that. So now people are now taking it more seriously. So because of that, we will continue more advocacy, more education, and that's why even as schools resume, we want to use the students as agents of change. Students will be able to, when they get home, they will be able to tell their parents who have thrown caution to the wind, who will not use masks and so on, to say, "Mommy, our teacher says we should use our mask all the time. Our teacher says we should wash our hands, we should use sanitizers and so on." You have just one bottle of sanitizer, put it in your pocket. Once you are not sure of what, just use it to rub, and then so what we are now doing is, we want us to realize that this is the new normal, this is the reality, and we have to live with it. And then in living with that, we have to observe all the necessary guidelines that have been given to us by government and by NCDC.
Thank you so much for coming to this program this morning. That's why our time schedule. Professor ABAYOMI ARIGBABU, Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology in Ogun State. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And I wish you the best of luck.
And that's it.
Dominic, you've got to go.
Yes, we also thank you so much for staying tuned. The program has been Newdawn, and this is where we are going to be drawing the curtains for today's edition. Otonjo will be here tomorrow. Do join our crew for Otonjo tomorrow. I am Dominic. On behalf of Biono Labi, I'm saying do have a wonderful day.
If you find yourself in Abeokuta, Ogun State, Nigeria, your home is right on your fingertips. Yes, Continental Suites. Continental Suites is the only place with a well-equipped gym. Come try out the modern massage room with a sauna. Sit back and relax at our pool bar and take a dive in our swimming pool.
Come watch lovely movies in our exclusive cinema.
Come have a taste of our different delicious delicacies at our Chinese restaurant. And we also serve local and international dishes. Come relax and give yourself a treat at our standard room, executive room, deluxe room. Check out the Ambassador Suite. We call it Continental Suite. You call it beautiful. Continental Suite is on IBB Boulevard, Ibarra, Abeokuta, Ogun State. For more information, please call 08033734340 or www.continentalsuites.org.
Jagamu Interchange to Abeokuta, Ijebu-Ode to Ekpe, and other sites in the state. Drive safely. Think safety.
This This is to inform the general public that the Ogun State government has observed that some private vehicles are fond of using government and official number plates on their private vehicle. This act is wrong and worrisome. It also contravenes the policy of the Ogun State government on the use of government official number plates. All accounted officers of ministries, departments and agencies are enjoined to furnish the office of the head of service with details of official vehicles bearing government and official number plates for record purpose. In order to streamline this practice, the approval must be obtained for allocation of vehicles number plate from the office of the head of service. Henceforth, the law enforcement officers have been directed to apprehend private vehicles that are affixed with government or official number plates. A word is enough for the wise.